You always know that it's going to be dicey when Paul shows up to a podcast with his hat backwards.
This is Auto Collabs.
Yep. Or that
What
it's
does that
dicey, which is why Paul showed up to a podcast with his hat backwards.
What does that mean? Is this code? Have I not learned something about you yet? What does the backwards hat mean?
The backwards hat is like business mode. Like we're getting things done right
Like
now.
nitty gritty.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it business mode. I would call it like
it's
like full throttle mode. It's like
Oh,
turn your hat around and run.
I don't care. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
Okay,
because we're running so fast that the brim's gonna blow the hat off.
Typically happens a little later in the day.
True. I mean, there's a lot going on right now. And the reality is, if I put the hat on forwards, it's going to blow off because there's so much.
You're just run. Now I'm just picturing you running down the halls of the building as full speed.
Just like, hold on.
Back and forth.
And then stopping.
Back and forth. He's like, turn.
And then stopping. I'm doing an experiment and I grab my neck pulse and look at my watch. Like I know how to do that part. I don't know how to do that part.
I mean, isn't this kind of the perfect metaphor for working in automotive retail? Like
That's exactly what the metaphor is for.
It's called Tuesday.
it's called Tuesday. Exactly.
Especially if you're in charge, especially if you're the heir apparent of the business because you're the owner's son who has worked your way up from the bottom up and earned every stripe, which is what Phil Gill is the sleeper of the industry. Every time I speak with Phil and every time I've spoken with him over the last few years, I always walk away thinking like more of the industry needs to know about Phil. I mean, it's one of the reasons we do ASOTU CON the way we do it, isn't it?
I mean, unless it's his strategy, right? Because my old pappy used to say, don't interrupt your competition when they're busy making mistakes.
Oh, we got to get your pappy on this show. Your old pappy, is that your dad or your grandfather?
No, that's my dad. That's what I call my old pappy. It's from that movie Maverick with Mel Gibson. He used to be like, my old pappy used to say.
I forgot that movie.
Man, there's been so many references in this intro. I can't even handle it.
All right. Well, Kyle, why don't you reference the guest?
Well, I'm going to reference the fact that we're hanging out with Phil Gill today, and we really, really hope you enjoyed this conversation and maybe get a couple references and one-liners of your own.
Hey, Phil, thank you so much for spending some more of your time with us today on Auto Collabs.
Hey, Paul and Kyle, it's great to be here.
Okay, so you are definitely one of the best dressed people in the industry, in my opinion. Every time I see you, you bring the hot fire. At ASOTU CON last year, you had this kind of like suit. It was just perfect. And you're wearing something unique now too. Like, what's this jacket?
Oh, this is just great sport coat. It's an interesting wool blend.
It is. It's got like a nice texture.
Paul's actually, just so you know, Phil, Paul's practicing. He really wants to be one of those like red carpet reporters where he walks up to people.
Who you wearing,
what
Phil?
Are you wearing today?
No, it's who are you wearing? I know when
I
get there. No, like you and your dad. I remember the first time I met you, and your dad always like has a dialed in suit, and then you were like, yeah, you've really picked up and carried the torch. And in the outfit. I mean, you have. I don't know. If you want to see it in person, just come. Are you going to be at NADA, the show?
No, I won't be at NADA this year.
But you will be at ASOTU CON, so you have to come meet Phil just to check the outfit. And that really actually does have a segue into my first question. Well, my first real question. A lot of people in this industry have grown up in the industry, and we're seeing this transition of leadership from the parents to the children, and you have really embraced that over the last years. Did you always know that you were going to step into the automotive world? Like, at what point did that click for you, or was it just kind of a predetermined notion?
Yeah, no, it wasn't predetermined. My father was always one to encourage me to try things that I was either passionate about or interested in. So, but I would say that it definitely clicked somewhere in the teens that I would probably get back into this business at some point. Now, it happened way earlier than I expected. I was going very well on trying the new thing, and then Dad called up and started the heavy recruiting of
what was the new thing?
The store. So actually, I was living in Boston at the time, working for TJX, who's corporate for TJ Maxx, Marshalls, and Home Goods, and was loving my time in Boston. Was enjoying.
I was buying sport coats overseas.
Yeah. And so, I made the decision to come back, and it's now been, I think we're coming up on 12 years back in the dealership now. So it's been a wonderful time.
I want to know what the recruiting was like, because
Oh,
like your dad
geez.
calls
It
you
was
up
like,
If
and
Tom Gill is involved, I'm sure it's awesome.
started with the phone call, and when he realized I was hesitant, he was on a plane out to Boston, took me out to a nice dinner.
That's
you
like
know,
college.
right?
That's like college athlete recruiting
Lays
right
it all
there.
out. And I still strung him along for another 3 months.
He
no
was
way,
on a
that is amazing.
So if
So what
you've
was your
never
first roll back? What did you come back
Yeah,
doing?
actually, so when I came back, I
hot
went
order,
moved right. I did that all through high school, so that
yeah, you
went
lived
under
that
the
life.
belt. When I came back, I actually went to Chicago for 6 months. So moved back to Cincinnati. 2 weeks later, I'm in Chicago for 6 months, working with our CPA firm, who does all automotive accounting, the Palmacala Group. They're a great firm. And I was in accounting. One of my majors in school was accounting. So I was there doing that. So when I came back to the store, I was up in the office, kind of helping to implement all this great stuff that I had seen from all these other dealerships I got to interact with. Um, while I worked
Who
with
was paying you
Palmacala.
during that time? Did the CPA just get like a free fill? Like, was your
No,
dad pay you, or is
CPA
it?
didn't get free fill. No,
Yeah.
but
And so,
no, it was a really good education. I got to learn a lot about all the different manufacturers, read through and analyzed just about every financial statement that existed out there. So
Wow.
it was a great introduction to the auto world for sure.
you know what that reminds me of,
That's
Kyle?
amazing. Yeah, that's
Have
exactly
you
what
ever
it
read this
reminds me
book?
of.
No,
I'm
Unreasonable
like
I've been seeing this
literally
book out
thinking
there. I
you
have
are
not
Will
read it.
Guidera. You are
Okay.
Will Guidera for automotive. It's nuts.
We can't
Yeah.
tell the full secret, but we may or may not. We'll tell you later. So Will Guidera in this book, his father was in the restaurant business. He grew up kind of in the restaurant business,
Mhm.
was really passionate about the front of the house, right? So the
Okay,
hospitality
sure.
side, ended up being rated the best restaurant in the world, with 11 Madison Park,
Okay.
and he worked for Danny Meyer. Great book, great story. You would absolutely love it. Actually, I'm going to send you a copy
Yeah,
because you
that
would
would be
love
a
it so
great
much.
read.
And the point is that his dad, he had this chance to go work a dream job, like at a dream restaurant that he always wanted to, or go work for, what was the company called? It was like the most boring name in the world, like Restaurant Associates or something.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Sure.
some
And
corporate restaurant company
and his
work in
dad said,
accounting, basically.
in accounting, and his dad said, take that job because you need to learn that side of the business. And he just spent years analyzing P&Ls, learning them inside and out, learning supply, learning inventory, learning all of the back end details that he needed to really run an incredible front of house and an incredible restaurant. So like your journey is all like
Yeah,
shaping up
it's been
nicely.
invaluable to have that background for sure.
What do you
Because
think
now
is
you're in
usually
the front of house.
Yeah,
I mean, you're
now I lead our sales department. So
right.
it's a pretty interesting mix, but it works out pretty well.
why is it so effective? Like let's break into that a little bit, because I think there are a lot of people that have sales chops and front of the house chops that like know their like simple math, in the front, but they don't understand the full picture of what's going on in the business from the dealer's perspective.
Sure.
Like open the book a little bit and speak to the people that work in the front of the house, maybe the kids of parents who are in sales right now. Like, why do they need to learn the other side? How do you use that to shape your perspective and your activities?
I think it's given me a really unique perspective, actually, and I'll give you a few examples of that. So understanding the entire dealership operation, you really get to inform yourself of how one department is really affecting the other department, how they work together to drive bottom line profitability, right? Because kind of the view I've taken is it's great if you have, it's wonderful to have profitability in every department, but what's ultimately matters is where does it all wash out in the end, right? There's one number at the end that says, hey, we're either really excelling here or we need to fix some things, right? And then we can take those deep dives into it. So, one of the interesting things that once I got to a level we put our entire management team on a pay plan that looks at total store gross profit, right? And I said it's important because the sales side, right, whether they like it or not, informs the service side, and the service side informs the sales side. And if we can work together if our management can work together from a store perspective, then we can drive the entire store to say, hey, this is a Tom Gill customer that we need to protect and keep. in order to grow our long-term viability as a
For all of us.
for all
Right.
of us,
I was
right? Doesn't
literally
matter
having
who
a
they interact
conversation
with.
with the dealer about this last week, saying you gotta get everybody tied to the real bottom line, the real profit margin of the store, because that's when you really start to think about the lifetime value of the customer.
For sure.
Yeah. Have you seen impact to like customer lifetime value or retention or just customer experience? Like, do you feel like there was a trigger point when you did that shifted things for the store?
Yeah, I do. It took a little bit of time, of course, and we've put in
Sure.
a lot of other programs to help drive retention and things like that. So it's a little hard for me to measure exactly like, hey, this thing
Right.
created this. What I will say though is that there's a great working relationship that we've been able to develop between our management in the store, right? Like our service manager can interact with our sales manager, can interact with our parts manager. And of course, there's somewhat, I'm going to call it turf that we're all protecting, right? We all want to take pride in our department. But
Mhm.
it also helps us to say, hey, listen, we've got this customer here. How are we going to solve this that's best for Tom Gill Chevrolet, not for each individual department, right? Because it all eventually affects, no matter what, it's affecting us, right?
You
It's
know, you've just brought a really important point of any team to mind. We're just getting through, like a really kind of rousing NFL football season if
sure.
you're an NFL fan. And the reality is like you have all the different teams, all the different coaches, they meet separately, they meet together, but they can all see the score
Yeah.
always. Right. And so like whether the offense is on the field, the defense, the special teams, whenever it's their turn to do the thing, there is that unifying element of like, that's the score. That's the thing we have to attack and win or lose together.
Right.
And with the absence of that, and it's tough, right? It can be challenging inside of
Mhm.
business to get everybody tied to that. But without that, like, what else can they hang their hat on aside from their own little area? Because you come up like, hey, the defense played great today. It's like, great. Well, we still lost because the offense didn't
Right.
put any points on the board. So, haha, right.
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 And that's I think that's been important. It's been really important in guiding the store and understanding it, because Kyle, to your point, I think that long-term value of a customer is often missed, and it's so important. I think it's going to be even more important in the coming years as we see shifts in market and increased competition and consolidation within industry, that we've got to hold on to those. The customers are our best assets, and we got to hold on to them as long as we possibly can, to make it
Are
successful.
you doing anything? And it's okay if you answer no to this, because I'm trying to find the person that's doing this, and maybe you can be the one to work on it
So
since
you
you
either
got
make
that
his day or
anal-
you'll ruin his day.
Right,
that
yeah, of course.
analytical mind. Like, have you worked to expose like high lifetime value customers within the store, and said like, hey, this is a customer that has an extremely high lifetime value for us. Like, we should pay attention even more. I think Delta probably does the best job of this, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you're flying Medallion on a Delta flight, someone's saying hi to you,
Sure.
Yeah.
So here's where we're at now, and here's where we're going. So actually, ASOTU CON this last year got me tuned into this, right? Heard a great talk. And they were talking about how are we identifying customers with this high lifetime value. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Right.
So how do I get this? So I came back, started working with our DMS, who's Techion, and they're really close to rolling out a product, it seems like, that will show me that, like, right in the customer profile,
Whoa.
which
Yes.
is really great. And
Was that Dan Bannister, Rick Reichert?
yeah,
And
that was the talk. Yeah.
that was the
That was the
session
That was
one,
the
man.
session. Yeah.
That was
I was like,
I got to
oh,
moderate
yeah.
that. That was probably one of my favorite talks
I was
of the
so
whole
bummed I
time.
missed that one.
And so, there was that. And then, we will be putting out our next evolution, kind of our Advantage program here at Tom Gill Chevrolet. So the thing that drives a lot of our retention is our Advantage program that we do with our customers. And right before I jumped on this, I'm putting final touches on our kind of our next evolution of that, which will be called Magic Care, which will be basically consumer memberships to Tom Gill Chevrolet. And they can then tier up based on those, what conveniences and opportunities they want. And so that's kind of the first step into really saying, okay, this is a high value customer. It's Tom Gill Chevrolet who really is bought into the ecosystem that we're building. So Stay tuned for that, because that is
I'm so
that
pumped
is
right
getting
now.
so
Like to
close to going
know
live. Yeah.
that you've gone back, taken something from a session, worked with a DMS, that's collaboration, that's connection, and then gone and exposed in a brand new program in order to increase lifetime value, all on this
Full
trajectory that you
circle.
I'm just
And then
you
you're
can
coming
call
back and
me
made it.
done for the day,
Right.
bruh. That's too good. That's too good.
So let me drill into that for a little bit, because I know you've for a long time been putting time and energy into thinking what are the advantages
Yeah.
of people, and you literally call them advantages, but what are the advantages of doing business with you versus all the other options that there are in your market,
Sure.
right? Because you have a, you're in a pretty big DMA. Why don't you explain your market in general, just so we can give people a little bit of perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're in the Cincinnati marketplace. So we sit in Florence, Kentucky, which is about 10 miles south of Cincinnati. So it's a metro population of roughly 3 million people. From a Chevy dealer standpoint, we have 16 Chevrolet dealerships to service those 3 million people, which
Couple
is
options.
there's a few options out there, right? So we sit in a very competitive market that is challenging. I mean, we have a great team of dealers that represent Chevrolet in Cincinnati. To give people an idea, Cincinnati or Chevrolet's been the number one selling brand in Cincinnati, I think 8 years going. We command like roughly 15% market share in the market itself. I mean, it's just a really strong competitive group of dealers that is going out there. So we, for a long time, have tried
I
to
can
say,
vouch for that.
yeah,
Like, I can tell you that in Cincinnati, I don't know of a Chevy dealer. There's probably one or two out of that 16, but like of the ones that come to mind, I lived in northern
yeah,
Cincinnati
sure,
in Mason for my like high school and middle school years.
okay.
Like every Chevy, like blank 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 Chevy, everyone has a pretty generally good reputation. So I can see why that's the reality on like the market penetration.
Yeah. So it's forced us to say, hey, how can we differentiate ourselves, right? So, some of our big differentiators or advantages are like lifetime oil changes when you buy a vehicle from us, lifetime car washes, and our used cars come with a lifetime powertrain warranty. And then there's some subcategories of that. You can get additional trade-in credit based on when you come to trade in off of that, loaner vehicles when you're in service. So a lot of conveniences to the consumer, right? And that helps build a lot of loyalty to Tom Gill
Without
Chevrolet.
a doubt.
So
Absolutely.
it's been a big, big help in our growth. And I'm excited to take it to the next level and see where we can go with that, because I think what we're seeing here is that, we're still going really steady with that, and it's been a good program, but I think there's more value to kind of squeeze out of that entire kind of ecosystem to really drive even better retention, happier customers, more convenient services, all that type of stuff.
Well,
Well,
I
when
can tell you, I mean, you're taking the playbook. I mean, it's not the exact playbook, but just when we look at large companies that are doing this, I'm going to go back to Delta, right? Like all I'm thinking about right now is Delta because I fly a lot because
and he
they've
just got the reserve card, so he like
Right.
and
So he's
leaves
up,
me
right, yeah.
outside as he walks into the lounge with his
I'm
pinky
like
up.
Right.
I strut in there and throw peace signs to
He
everybody.
starts saying hi to people. He doesn't know if it's their name.
Right. Yeah.
He
No
just,
idea.
Betty.
Yo, what's up, Jenny? Yeah. But the trigger there was they completely remapped their entire incentive program
Right.
like in 2023 and for now 2024. And so it provides doing what you're doing does actually like it provides a trigger point for the energy if you can communicate it well to the
For sure.
customers and share the value and show how this enhanced program actually brings them closer. There's a marketing cadence around, hey, we're changing this for the better for you.
Right.
It's not just like a part of the advantage, but there's a marketing cadence that you can get out of that, which will attract more and more people to continue to do business with you because we all love we love getting the proverbial freemium,
Right.
right? In our culture.
Absolutely love
Right?
it. It's the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it as well. And the one area that we identified that we're really missing is like, how do we bring a program to a customer that didn't buy the car from us but is doing service with us, right?
Ah.
to
Yeah.
bring them into the ecosystem and say, hey, I want to capture you now.
Right, because you
Right.
want the next sale.
Because I want the
Right.
next sale. Yeah. And so, that's another big part of this. That'll be a big focus of ours, is how do we expand that bucket of people to say, hey, I can service your car, and then I probably will get your next sale the next time around. So
Yes, that's exactly it. Because I mean, you're what you're always like 5 to 7x, maybe more, your service ROs to your sales
right. Oh yeah.
every single month. And so it's like, what are the opportunities in that customer base that you're not getting the value of because they didn't like buy the thing with the free stuff for
Right.
life, right?
For
And so
sure.
how do you endear them to you as a company?
Yep.
That's amazing.
Well, I'll
So
tell you what, we never ever have a lack of conversation when
Unbelievable.
you're here. And unfortunately, we're out of time today, but I'm sure we'll catch up soon. You will be at ASOTU CON. Our producer messaged me and said I can announce it because it'll already be announced by the time this airs. We're having Will Guidara, the author of that book, at ASOTU CON this year. So you get to see
nice.
him, and looking forward to hopefully having some time to share some of these stories with him and get his perspective, because we're trying to pull him and his hospitality mindset into automotive, right? Like, what do you think about this product? And he has a company, actually, it's called Thank You. And it kind of consults on experience and kind of this unreasonable hospitality. So Phil, you kind of embody that just naturally. And now that we know that your story kind of like lines up, it makes all the sense in the world. Thank you so much again for just giving your time and your energy and your passion, sewing it back into this industry that we all know.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. It was fun being on.
All right, so I think what Phil just told us is that he came
Everybody
to
should
ASOTU
come to
CON,
ASOTU CON.
and he sat in a session and he learned from another dealer, Dan Bannister, or sparked an idea on how to do something regarding lifetime value of a service customer. And then he partnered with a tech partner to build and deploy the very idea that was conceived at ASOTU CON. And here we are, not even a year later, not even 6 months later, and he's like ready to do it. Like, talk about a mover and a shaker and a sleeper. I go back to my comment in the intro.
Can't even handle it.
Nope.
I mean, that's innovation, though. It's like, again, we've talked about this. It's like assembling tools and resources that already exist into a new concept that serves a purpose for you. And that's exactly what he's doing, right? Tech company already existed. ASOTU CON existed. Like, just I'm always fascinated by how overcomplicated sometimes we make things. And then you see somebody like Phil who comes right down the middle and is like, I'm not going to overthink
I'm
it.
just going to do
something
it
about it.
I'm right. I'm not going to tell everybody. I'm not going to make a big fuss about it. I'm just going to do it. And people like ever look, oh yeah, I'll tell them what I did. No problem. Yeah. Oh, by the way, like my retention's through the roof and my profitability is through the roof too.
You know what I also love? He talked a lot about just how his experience in like the back of the house, and we talked about Will Guidara, is like this scenario where you've got someone that understands both sides of the business and can execute and move in such a more seamless way. That thought process for me is like, I always want to be cross-trained on everything in the business, because then I see the business from all angles. And I think that like GSMs, general managers, owners, operators that can take that position, always going to be more profitable and run better businesses.
Absolutely. Well, we hope you enjoyed this conversation. We hope it spurs you to some action, because if it doesn't, what are we doing here? On behalf of Kyle Mountseer, Michael Cirillo, and myself, thanks for listening to Auto Collabs.
Welcome to Auto Collabs.
Why are we recording?
Are we rolling yet?